All right, we're going to talk about creating an inbound AI IVR. Now, when you log into Pitchit, you're probably going to end up in the Conversations tab. Just go over to Agents and click Create a New Agent. I'm just going to call this one Inbound AI IVR Demo. In the type, choose Inbound IVR, right? That's the type of agent we're building. In the description, you're going to give it a basic description so that contextually the AI agent knows what its job is. So it doesn't need to be super complicated, but give it something. Don't leave this blank. Say, you're an AI IVR that takes thousands of inbound calls per day. Your job is to answer questions, qualify the lead, and route callers to the appropriate department. Company description. So give it a description of what your company does. So if I were doing like Pitchit, for example, Pitchit is an AI agent SaaS platform that helps sell internet using AI agents across SMS, voice, email, and WhatsApp channels. Put something here that explains your company. That combined with the agent's job is going to give it the context that it needs to know how to represent you in the role that you need it to represent you in. The next thing is the voice options. So you don't need to click any of these if you don't want to. I do think that generally frequently asked questions will be a popular and necessary one to turn on, although you don't have to. The next one is scheduling an appointment. Now this is more common for B2B inbound AI IVRs. So if you're booking appointments with a business internet buyer, that makes sense. So you would turn on scheduling appointments. But if you're selling internet to a consumer, I don't know if an appointment makes a lot of sense, so I would turn it off. Now, the final one is asking for time zone. Now, if you're selling business internet to Jamaicans, right, for Jamaican business owners, Jamaica has the same time zone no matter where you are in Jamaica. So you probably don't want this on, right? It'd be very strange to ask a Jamaican what's your time zone. But in America, it's really common to say what's your time zone because we have 4 different time zones. We've got Hawaii's time zone, we have West Coast, we have 5. We have West Coast, we have Mountain Time, we have Central Time, we have Eastern Time, right? And so it does make a lot of sense if you're selling to Americans and you want to schedule an appointment. It would make sense to turn this on because the AI agent will just, if someone says call me tomorrow at 9, the AI agent's going to say, cool, what's your time zone? Because it needs to calibrate that time zone with the time zone of the Pitchit owner that built the agent. So you turn this on and the agent will actually ask for the time zone and make it match, just like humans do when we're booking appointments in email with each other. We say, what's your time zone? The agent will do the same thing. The next bit, step 2, is to configure the actual departments. This is a critical step. You can skip it if you want, but I highly advise at least creating 1 or 2. A good example, let's do like sales and support, right? So I'm gonna pull the sample department for support, and I'm just gonna break it down. I won't make that many changes to this one. So this is a department that handles all support inquiries. The description is that it's a customer support and technical assistance department. The function is to assist customers with issues and answer questions to resolve their problems. And then the routing criteria is route to this department if the person on the phone tells the AI IVR that they have any questions about product usage, troubleshooting, or technical difficulties, right? This is a nice standard sample example. Some keywords, this is important. Do include keywords. So if you know for sure that help, support, issue, problem, troubleshoot, yard damage. That's a common one for fiber installation because some neighbors pissed that their yard was damaged while installing fiber. That might be a keyword that triggers you to automatically have the AI IVR send it to support. Whatever those keywords are, throw them here. It's not only going to depend on these keywords. It does look at the function, routing criteria, and description that you give it, as well as what the customer says. But it helps because if the customer does say help or problem or yard damage, it's very likely, since you put it in the keyword cloud, that it will end up in this department. Again, it's not like a guarantee. The context is really important. So you could say like, I need help buying a new internet for my business. Just because you said help doesn't mean it's necessarily going to end up in support, because in that context, that also sounds like a sales opportunity. But don't put things into the support department like pricing, because that's almost always going to be a sales opportunity when someone's asking for pricing. And so these keywords do have a lot of weight, but it's not necessarily a be-all, end-all. I do suggest adding at least a handful in here. Next bit, so this is really just like, how do you want us to transfer the call from the Inbound AI IVR to your support department if our AI agent identifies that the person should be transferred to your support team? And so we give you 3 ways of doing this. You can do this through WebSockets. And so you're going to have some kind of configuration from Genesis or Twilio or Infobip that basically gives you a SIP URI or some kind of URL config for WebSockets, and you'll basically paste the extra config here. Typically, they're going to have a second option of doing a SIP trunk. And so if you do have a SIP trunk, we're asking you to put the SIP URI here. Don't forget to add SIP with a little colon here. This is just an example of one that it should look like. And then finally, if you want to do like a PSTN transfer, you would put like the PSTN number. So the 1-800, we could do 800. We could do 800 straight to your support center. I do think most of you will pick SIP URI combined with the phone number so that it ends up in your support department, but for a very affordable per minute talk track. Some of you will pick Genesis. It's unlikely, but you technically could just put a phone number in here. Most people don't want to do this, though, because then you have PSTN rates, and the per minute talk time on PSTN call forwards is really high. But some of your dealers, some of the people you're transferring to, some of your departments might only have this option. And so what you do is delete the SIP, delete the extra config, and just put in the phone number. And so we give you all 3 of these options. This is the most affordable one. This is usually the second most affordable, and this is usually the most expensive option. But you can do all 3. Technically, they are different ways of transferring a call. Also, sometimes, depending on the flow, if it's a sales-only line, you might not want to transfer them at all. Maybe you actually just want the AI to say, hey, this is not a sales opportunity, so hang up, right? And so we'll give you this option to say, this is a sales-only line. If you need support, please hang up and call XXXXXXXXXX. Super common. We do make that option available. So basically, you can transfer or you can end the call. Final bit, this is a cool one that I like, so capturing consent. So right before the agent ends the call and right before the agent transfers the call, if you toggle on consent capture, it's going to ask for consent to call them back. And some of you will want this and others of you will not, but it's there as an option. If you do, it's going to ask you to create a new consent language. Make sure you call it something that's really clear and easy for you to identify. So I always like to say the name of the products I'm capturing consent for. So Spectrum, AT&T, T-Mobile. Maybe you're capturing consent to sell those 3 items. And then what the text should say is where you'd put in your actual consent capture language. So do you expressly consent to receiving future automated AI, SMS, voice, and email regarding Spectrum, yada, yada, yada. Like you would put the whole context into this and paste it. On our site, we have a really nice example of a form fill that's pretty good actually as a template for you to use. You'd want to make slight tweaks to it for voice because there's no box that you're checking, for example. But either way, there's specific language that your legal team will give you. Paste it in here, click create, and now right before hanging up, it's going to ask for consent with this exact speech-to-text language you put in there. And if the person says yes, it's going to store that consent in your audiences tab, and you'll be able to take action. So if they consented to outbound and then they hung up the phone and you want to call them again, you can use that audience and create an automated workflow that outbound dials them and gets a hold of them again. And this is really common because 15-20% of all inbound IVRs have drop-off. And so if you capture consent, you can start automating some of the second swing contacts in an outbound flow with automations on Pitchit. And so to do that, you would turn this on, capture the consent, that creates the library, and then you'd hook up that library of people to an outbound campaign to outbound dial them later. Now, let's say this is good. Support department's good to go, right? But maybe you want a couple more departments like sales, okay? So you'd make changes to this, change the department and description, change the function, change the criteria, and probably you're going to want to make changes to the keywords. I'm not going to go through that in the video, but just make sure that they are unique. Don't use the same exact language and support in sales. There should be a difference between keywords and criteria and functions. And the reason I wanted to drill down on this is that you could and probably will have different transfer details, and you may or may not want to end the call. Like in this example, we wanted to end the call if it's support because it's a sales only line. Maybe for sales though, I don't want to end the call. I want to transfer it to our 800 number through a SIP URI and then my, Genesis config. And so in this example, I also want to capture consent for the same thing, let's say. And so this, if you finish this and this were to go live as is, what would happen is the AI IVR would take the call, and if the caller on the phone identifies that there's a sales opportunity, it'd drill down into sales, right? And it would know that it should not hang up the phone. It should actually transfer through the SIP trunk with a WebSocket configuration to this 800 number, and then the call will go through right after it captures consent. Now this consent, I want to point out, I forgot to mention, it's not required. If someone says yes, it's going to move forward with the transfer. If they say no, it's still going to move forward with the transfer because consent capture is always optional. So if you turn this on and they say, no, I don't consent, it's not just going to hang up on them. The AI IVR will still transfer them as the caller requested. It just will show up in your library as someone who did not consent to outbound calling. And so you won't want to automatically call them with AI. And so our system basically won't automatically call them back because they said no. Now, moving on, next step, this is a really cool feature that it's going to make sense if you have a lot of questions that you have to ask a caller before they are qualified to talk to your departments. And if you enable it, right, it's going to ask you to create a category. This is totally optional, by the way. If you don't enable it, the AI agent is not going to ask 6 or 7 questions. It's going to ask just one question to the inbound caller, and then it's going to try to find a department based on their answer that fits. If you turn on survey, though, it's going to ask 6, 7, as many questions as you put in here. It's going to ask them all before identifying which department to send them to. And there's a bunch of conditional logic. So you could put, question 1, context for question 1. Let's say like, are you interested in buying internet for your business, right? Make sure it's a yes or no kind of true or false type question. Those are generally the best ones for our survey agent. If it's an open-ended question like what are you calling about today, you can still use those in survey, but it is going to be, I think, better if you do survey as like true false. Are you calling about your business? Yes, no. Context here is let's say the caller wants to buy internet for their business, right? That's the context around the question. And then the action, this is where we need to identify, do we basically need to create a subcategory so that if they say yes to this question, we need to ask 3 or 4 more questions? Do we just need to capture the answer and move on to the next one? Do we need to schedule a meeting if they say yes to this? Or do we need to transfer them immediately to a department if they say yes to this, right? So let's role play here. If you're a AI IVR designed to identify if there's a business internet sales opportunity and they say yes to this question, right? Maybe you want to ask one more follow-up question. And let's say, do you want to buy internet today, right? A caller wants immediate sales assistance, right? That's the context. In this case, you've now identified that it's not just a lead for buying business internet, but it's a hot lead that should absolutely talk to your business team today. And so in this example, I'm going to say transfer to department if they say yes to this question, and then I'm going to choose the department that we just created in that last step. Any department you create in that last step will show up here in the dropdown, and let's say sales. So what we've done here is we've identified that the caller wants internet for their business and they want it today. So they're a very hot lead. So we need to send them immediately to the sales department. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You can add a whole bunch of other subcategories before transferring, and you can make the first one just capture the answer, right? So I'm going to do that example because I haven't given you an example there on capturing yet. But if you just want to capture the answer, what that means is if it gets like a yes or a no or a maybe, it doesn't really matter. It's going to ask the next question no matter what happens, but it will store the answer and move on to the next one. And so let's say, do you have a current internet? No, who is your current internet provider, right? Inbound caller must identify current provider if applicable, right? Cool. Capture the answer. Let's say that they say, yes, I'm buying internet, and yes, I want it today, and my current provider is AT&T. Cool. Maybe we have one more subcategory, and that is to schedule a meeting because it's a business owner, right? Maybe the question would be, do you want to book a call with our live agent? No, we have a live agent. No, let's say, do you want to book a call with our sales team? If they say yes, then the context would be inbound caller wants to schedule a meeting, right? Now, in this example, there is no way that this person can get transferred to a live sales floor. And that's fairly common for B2B internet sales. And it might be very common for most B2B flows that you want the action to schedule a meeting. This goes back to that previous step where we turned on meeting scheduling and the time zone question. If you've checked those boxes and you've chosen the action to schedule a meeting, what will happen is if they say yes to question 1, and then they get through subcategories 1 and 2 and 3, what will occur is they will not transfer to a department. They're actually going to schedule a meeting, right? Now, let's say this is just for business, but I want to know if you're a consumer buying internet. I'm going to say a new question. So I'm going to create a completely new category. Are you interested in buying internet for your household, right? So this is more of a consumer play. Inbound caller wants internet consumer plans, right? In this case, I'm going to branch into subcategories again, and I'm going to create a subcategory. Who is your current provider? Inbound caller identifies provider today, if applicable. I'm going to capture the answer, and then I'm going to say, what's your address? Inbound caller identifies address, right? And then after the address, let's say I just immediately transfer to sales, okay? This is a good example of a survey agent who will ask at least a handful of questions before either scheduling an appointment with this B2B sales team or transferring the caller to your sales consumer team. And the way that our survey agent works is you do want to choose the order, so I can move category 1 and 2 up or down, right? And if I move it up, what it means is it's going to start with asking about the business. If I move it down, in this example, it's going to ask the question about consumer first. And what we're looking for, what the inbound agent's looking for here, the survey, is if they say yes to this question, only then will it drill down into these subcategories, right? If they say no to this question, it will not drill down into subcategory 1 and 2. Instead, it will move on to the second category question. If they say yes to this question, it will drill down into the subcategories and eventually take the action. The other things that you can do is, let's say this is a true or false. Do you have a business address assigned today? Maybe they have like a physical retail store already. Inbound caller already has a business address. Maybe you think this is like a signal that they could buy really quickly. Then you might transfer to sales, right? In this example, we've drilled down to category 2, but if they say yes, we're not going to go to subcategory 3. We don't need to, because we're going to transfer straight to sales if they say yes. If they say no to subcategory 2, it'll move on to subcategory 3, where they are actually going to schedule a meeting. This is just an example of how flexible these subcategories and categories are. But generally speaking, the whole point of each category and subcategory is to try to capture affirmative or negative answers and then take action based on those answers in what I would consider to be a conditional logic flow that's sequential, so that you can actually survey in order and like dynamically route based on more complicated lead qualification questions. So if you have fairly complicated lead qualification Q&A, you would want to leverage this survey feature. Final bit, FAQs. This is fairly straightforward. So if the consumer or business owner on the phone with the Inbound AI IVR is asked a question but doesn't answer it properly, and instead they ask, what's your business hours? What's your pricing? Who are you guys? What is the point of this AI IVR? If they ask questions like that, right, just put them into the FAQ. This is an example of some sample ones. So if they ask, what's your business hours, or something similar to that question, the AI will answer, we're open Monday through Friday, right? And that's a general question. This one is a technical support question. This one's a billing question, right? You'd put all your FAQs in here, and it's going to answer the question to the consumer, but then it's going to go back to the survey and try to put them back into the lead qualification talk track. So once you're done and you're happy with all these, you create the agent. At that point, it's in your library, and you'll have a library of lead qualification agents and inbound IVR agents that are either in draft or active. You can always duplicate by clicking replicate, and then you can make slight tweaks. Like maybe you don't want to do schedule appointment and time zone anymore, and then you can go and launch it, and you can just call this version 2, right? Totally fine. If you wanted to do that, all you have to do, again, is go to your library of agents and then duplicate it, make edits, and then call this one version 2. Once you're done with the agent library and you're happy with the agent you've created, go to campaigns, and now we just need to hook up that agent to an inbound campaign. So campaigns inbound, go to create inbound. Let's call this Inbound AI IVR demo. The type of campaign in this case is an IVR. Pitch is where you're going to throw in all your disclosures. Now, if you turn survey on with your agent, the pitch is just call disclosures, okay? It's not going to wait for an answer from the caller. If you turn survey off, then you need to make sure your pitch also includes a question, like, what are you calling about? Because without a survey turned on, the AI agent is not going to know how to get the conversation started so that it can route properly to a correct department. So since we have survey agent turned on, I'm going to use the pitch as a call disclosure. Thanks for calling. I'm just going to say company name, whatever your company name is. Put it there, right? On a recorded line. That's a good disclosure for most of the world. If you're recording the line, a lot of places require that you tell them it. I'm an AI IVR. You don't have to say this in every state, but a lot of areas across the world are starting to say if it's AI, you have to disclose that. Let's say I'm an AI IVR, and I can help answer any questions or route you to the appropriate live agent, right? In this example, right, let's just put a pin in this. If I were to move forward, what's going to happen is the AI agent is going to start the call when it answers it by saying, thanks for calling company name on a recorded line. I'm an AI IVR, and I can help answer any questions or route you to the appropriate agent, right? Work with your legal team to come up with whatever disclosures you want here. But it's not going to wait for the caller to say anything. It's going to jump straight into the first category of questions that you've created with your survey agent, okay? If I turned the survey agent off, then it will not jump straight into a survey. It will actually wait for the caller to answer it after it states the speech to text. And that's why if you don't have survey agent, you want to end with a question like, how can I help you today? Because then the caller is going to answer. And based on their answers, it's going to be looking for those keywords in the context to identify which department it should maybe send you to. And so if you don't have Survey Agent turned on, make sure you always have some kind of open-ended question at the end of your disclosures just to get your callers talking, because you need to give the AI IVR an opportunity to capture keywords and answers from your customers so that it knows how to transfer them properly. But since I did a Survey Agent, I'm not going to end with a question. I'm just going to get my disclosures in there and click Next. Next step is easy. Choose your AI agent. This is the demo one we just made. Final bit, if you do have live transferring turned on in your agent, and one of the actions for one of your departments is to transfer to a call center, put in your call center's operating hours here, because if it's like 1 a.m. and your call center's closed, you might not want a live transfer to them. Like maybe you want the AI agent to say, hey, I'd love to transfer you, but it's Wednesday at 7 p.m. and we're closed. We reopen at 9. And if you have schedule appointment turned on, the AI IVR will ask, do you want us to schedule an appointment to call you back? If you don't have schedule appointment turned on, it's basically going to say that it can't transfer you right now and that you'll have to call back tomorrow, Thursday at 9. And then the AI agent will basically hang up because it's after hours and you didn't turn on scheduling as a skill you wanted the AI agent to be able to do. And so it's going to still answer the call and disposition it and record it for you guys, but it will hang up on them unless you have operating hours that are currently open or you've given the AI agent the right to schedule appointments, in which case it will. And so that's what this operating days and times is for you to identify your call center's time zone and then which days of the week they're open and what starting and ending times you're willing to let the AI agent live transfer them onto the floor for. Final bit, provision your SIP phone number and URI. If you turn this on, it's going to give your team the SIP URI needed that you and your call center infrastructure provider would need in order to send us this call. So you'd basically copy paste this URL into your PBX or your call systems like Genesys, Infobip, Twilio, Telnex, whatever you're using, right? They're going to say, when you receive a call for your call center inbound, where do you want us to send it? This is basically, Pitchit is telling you that if you want the AI agent you just created to answer the call, here's the URI that you need to give to your call system. So work with your IT team, give them this SIP URI. Final bit, again, is do you want us to schedule appointments? If you get a call after hours that's outside of these calling these days and times, instead of hanging up on the person, we could schedule an appointment. Totally fine. If you want that, choose schedule an appointment and then tell us whose calendar you want us to hook up to actually book the appointment. So maybe you want to assign it to a salesperson or a customer support person. And so if they have created an account on your Pitchit team, their calendar will be made available. And when you choose schedule appointment, it will pull from their calendar. If you don't want to pick one, it's just going to pick the one attached to your user account. And when you click create, this campaign goes live. And so end to end, that's how you create an inbound AI IVR. Generally, you'll have a whole bunch of these that are designed for different purposes. If you ever aren't happy with the first draft, again, you just duplicate the campaign, right? So duplicate the inbound campaign and call it V2, and then go duplicate your agent and call it V2, publish both the new agent V2 and the new campaign V2, and try again. Make some slight tweaks to V1 until you're happy. And once you're happy, you can just basically delete or pause those older versions that you've now relegated. And so end to end, that's how you build an inbound AI IVR campaign from start to finish. You should not need any engineering skills or coding or prompting skills to do this. And so generally it would take you about 20 to 30 minutes or so, start to finish, to create your first draft. Thanks for watching.